Good evening and welcome to the FiTT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow, helping our people get their finances in shape. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, around the country and around the world. My name is Bobby P. Kinzer,
And I'm Thomas Doty.
and we are the FiTT Show. Like I said, helping our people navigate through the financial mainstream of life. Welcome, everyone. This is our 231st show. And it is this wonderful day, March 5th, in the year of our Lord, 2026. We've been here 4 years, making it happen. And I just want to let people know that we just like to give a disclaimer about our show. We're not fiduciaries. We're not qualified financial advisors. We are financial educators as we see ourselves. And we know that no one size fits all portfolio, but with the information, the news we use, you can take it and apply it to your personal situation because you know your situation better than us. So whenever we're talking to you, remember, we're talking from a macro perspective as opposed to your specific. But it's enough information that you can really get some things done with. I just want to make sure you do some administrative things. So click on the like button and the heart button. That gives us a lot of traction to people. And please put comments into the comment box and any questions you have or any topics you like, because it's exponential when you put that information in the comment box. So use that even more if you may. And make sure you go out there and share on Facebook Live and subscribe out there on YouTube. Those are the platforms we're on, and we really would appreciate that much when you do that. So now that we got the administrative things out the way, Dote, how's your day going?
Absolutely fantastic. Crazy weather down here. We were almost 80 degrees, so it's absolutely wonderful.
80 degrees?
Yeah, warm. Nice here, man.
Dang, man, that's some crazy. Did y'all get any snow?
No.
I didn't get snow when the snow came through. Wow, okay, that's amazing, man. It's crazy. Just like the weather's been crazy. I think we can actually say all that about the stock market, right, Dope? So, a bellwether.
It's been crazy. The stock market has been absolutely baffling. But with the war going on, it's no surprise. And I think the market took a turn for the worse today. Now it was down. At one point, it was down like 1,200 points, but ended up being down around 800. And I think what got everybody spooked was somebody sank an oil tanker. So I think there's some thought that this war may cause some supply demands with oil, which may end up, I don't know if you looked at gas lately, but our gas jumped about 30, 40 cents this week. And so.
Not mine.
Yeah, I bet it did. Oh, you're electric. Yeah. I forgot you got one of those Elon Musk cars. So yeah, we ain't talking about you. But the rest of the people who ain't supporting Elon Musk, your gas is probably going up. And I think there's some concern that this may end up having an effect on the economy, inflation. So we're going to have to see how all this shakes out. But if you look at the week to week, it doesn't look that extreme because there's been a lot of up and downs. You can see the S&P is down 1%, and the NASDAQ's actually down less than 1%. And Microsoft kind of got some of its loss back. It's been down a bunch, but even a day like today, it was up. I think it was up a little over 5 points. Apple's down 13, Nvidia's down slightly, Google's down a little bit. Nothing unusual in any of them. Pfizer's flat. And a new stock I bought just last week, Boston Scientific. And this is the stock I wanted to get something in the healthcare field. I thought about buying United Healthcare back, but everybody's just very, very bearish on that. So I did a little research and came up with a stock that was recommended by a bunch of different analysts. And the crazy thing is they make a device that both Bob and I have issues called atrial fibrillation, where your heart goes out of rhythm. And this company actually makes a device that's inserted in your chest and kind of keeps the blood from clotting. Not only the whole medical thing, but they actually sell this device. And if you've seen a commercial on TV for the Watchman, it's made by Boston Scientific. So that's my latest foray into the stock market, in the healthcare field, and very highly rated. So I'm going to get at it. And so I bought this. So anyway, I think there's going to be a lot of volatility until this whole thing with the Iran war is figured out. So hopefully something will happen positively on that soon. But until then, we're going to see a lot of volatility in the stock market.
Yeah, that's a given, right? And some crazy time. And war tends to do that too, by the way.
Yeah, especially a war in the Middle East where all the oil is coming from. Even though I think we might produce more oil than anybody, but still, so much of the world supply depends on oil from the Middle East, and Iran is actually threatened to bomb anybody that comes through that little strait. That's
right. It's very narrow.
Yeah, most of the rest of the country, most of the rest of the world use that to access the oil. So yeah, this is going to be crazy for a while.
Yeah, that's why it's important that you have a good portfolio mix to sort of weather the shock, either way it goes. And that's why we always talk about being diversified. Though the one, a couple of people have been asking me a question. No, let me do the crypto because this applies to cryptocurrency too first. So let's talk about the crypto market, though. It's up 3%, believe it or not. It's back. It's up. Bitcoin is up $3,699, 5% a Bitcoin, back up from the 60,000 range to $70,965 per Bitcoin. Ethereum is still the number 2. That's a smart contract cryptocurrency. And Tether and Binance keeps going back and forth. Last week, Tether was in 4th place, and Binance was in 3rd. Now, Tether, no, I'm sorry. Tether has been holding at number 3. It lost a penny though. That's the stable coin that they're talking about regulating, and the banks starting to get into eventually. But Binance, Ripple, they've been going back and forth. Last week, Ripple was number 4 and Binance was 5. And as you can see, Binance is up $25 by 4%, and actually Ripple was just up by 1 cent. And then you got USDC, which is another stable coin, and that's just holding steady. The question I've been getting from a couple of people, though, and we've talked about it before, but since people are asking me, I'll put it in front of everybody so that me and you can discuss it. They asked me, like, with the way things going and the dollar is devaluing, right? These are people who invested, though, and they wanted to know about holding strategy versus cashing out what you invested. At least you know that you have that, and holding more cash in these times. What is your take on it?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is, with the way the market and everything is going, the way the dollar is going, it seems like cash is going to be king again. And they were wondering, should they cash out of some of their stocks, just what they invested, not, the whole stocks, but just what they invested, and hold steady in the stock market, and then they playing with the house money, or should they just sit and wait it out?
My personal opinion is that you wait it out. You don't try to time the market, and that's what you'd be doing. There's no telling how long this thing is going to last. So by pulling out, the tougher question is when to go back in, and you're going to wait till things start going back up to go in. That's called timing the market, and that's a unique set of skills that I don't know anybody who has that skill. I strongly believe in investing for the long term, for the long haul, buying good stocks that you want to keep, and you don't let volatility, or you don't let things that are happening outside the market influence your decision. If you feel you want to get out of stocks, if there's a reason to get out of the stock, like it's not doing well, not performing well, or no longer meets your requirements for owning it, then that's a different scenario. But to try to cash out and figure out when to get back in, I don't think that's a recipe for success.
That actually wasn't the question, though. The question was not cashing out totally. They went for that. The question was cashing out what they invested and leaving the house money in there to grow.
Oh, maybe taking some gain? Is that what you're saying?
But only take with, like, for instance, if they put in $2,000 and it grew to $10,000, they're saying should they just take out the $2,000 they invested? They're not trying to time the market and preserve that and just let the 8 rise. Now they actually playing with house money.
And again, you'd have to know what that unique situation is, what your long-term goals are. If you're looking to grow your money,
good point.
If you this is just extra money, what are you going to do? You're going to put it in a savings account, a high yield savings account, and make 3%, and that's assuming that the market's going to keep going down. If you have something that you want to sell for the reasons of I think that's one of your philosophies, Bob. I'm going to sell some of my gain to pocket some of that.
Right. But only what I invested. That's what and this was the other thing, though, because you make a good point. It depends on what your goal is, what your situation, what your portfolio look at. Because if you do not have an emergency fund, I'm talking about in cash, right? Say you're very low on your emergency fund and you're very high on your stocks. So the example I gave, you got $10,000 and you have let's give this scenario, though, and you have no emergency fund, or very low, say $500. Then I think the strategy will be, take the money you invested and put it in and build your emergency fund because it's low, and let the 8,000, ride, and you use the house money, but at the same time, you didn't lose because you took out what you invested and you build in your emergency fund.
Yeah. If you don't have an emergency fund, then I feel a little leery about why you invested in the stock market if something happens.
I know some people are, though. I know that's why this question came about because they got, and this is one guy, man. He's at the printing shop, man, and he's in the video big time, and he's into margins, and he's like got these margin calls, and I'm like, dude, take that money out your gains and pay off the margin calls because they keep getting bigger. But he sees that it's that loss aversion thing, though. He don't want to take the money out because he think he's losing. But I'm like, he's so ahead in the video. I mean, he bought in the video about like 10 years ago, and he's killing with it, right? But he also does these margins, and he's building up this debt. I'm like, dude, take some of that gain and pay off your debt. Same type thing, kind of, dope. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's hard to make a one-off without knowing the whole situation, Bob.
That's how you started off. That's what I give you right about that.
And that's what makes it difficult. But we've always talked about investing for the long term. If you got a good stock, why would you sell it now, not knowing when to get back in? If your portfolio let's say you want to be 60-40, 60% stock, 40%, let's call it bonds and cash equivalents.
That's good, right.
And now your stocks have grown to the point where they're 70%.
Right.
So you might want to sell some gain to keep your desired portfolio percentages. I mean, that's completely
That's good. Right. I hear you though.
That's completely normal.
Yes.
But I wouldn't sell in anticipation of what's going on in the market. I think that's the thing I want to try to avoid, is to get away from market timing. There's a bunch of good reasons to sell. There's a bunch of good reasons to rebalance your portfolio, but fear of the market is not one of them for me.
Right. But first and foremost, like you say, I don't believe in timing the market and you trying to sell because you're panicking because it's going down. But I was like, if you had different scenarios like I put in front of you, that might be something to consider, to balance it. And now you make a good one though about portfolio mix, because I know a gentleman, won't say his name, and he is killing in his 401k plan, and it went from 60-40, 60 equities to now damn near 80%. And I'm like, and he's near retirement. I'm like, dude.
No, you don't want to be like that, and the market takes a huge hit.
And then you
go to a bear market, and that's the money you plan on living on.
Yeah, and I'm talking about he's like, dope, $6 million up in his 401k plan at the FDIC.
Okay.
$6 million. Most people around about $1 million who's been around for a long time at FDIC and just had a, very conservative mix. There's a lot of people walking away with $1 million, $2 million, but he got about $6 million. Then when the market dropped, when was that? Man, he lost about $1 million just when it dropped to that day, because he was in the international. But so the point, let me just bring it to everybody. I just wanted to bring it up because 3 people had asked me, and it's not a straight cut answer. It depends on your situation. And that's what the point that we're trying to make. So I hope this discussion helps some people. All right, dude, let's get into the show.
Before we get started, I got another public service announcement. And another scam that's starting to be more popular is the deed theft.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, and typically that's more likely to happen if you have a property that no one's living in, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen to your property. So if you own a home, one of the things I did, I went out to my county website where you go in and search your property, and you can hopefully you find your name if you own your property. But my county actually has gives you the ability to set up alerts on your property name. So if you look up your property, you find it. If you live in York County, South Carolina, you can actually put an alert. And if anybody tries to change the deed on that particular property, you will get an alert. And so if I were you, I would check your county records and see if that attribute exists in your particular situation. I don't know what county you're in, by Montgomery?
No, Prince George's.
Yeah, check Prince George's. Check and see if they have that on their website. If you have that's one safeguard.
Right.
The other safeguard is to every 3 months, every 2-3 months, let's say 2-3 times a year, go out and check and make sure your deed is as you think it should be.
Right.
Be on the lookout for not receiving a utility bill, water,
right,
or property taxes. Make sure you get those as you normally do. If for some reason you are missing one of those, that should set off alarm that there could be something going on with your deed. So that's another scam that's out there that's becoming more popular. And I've read stories of people having their house sold from under them, and because all your information, I have 3 letters in front of me today that detailed data breaches. So all your information pretty much is out on the dark web. Your social security number, your birthday, your address, all of your information. So people have your information. It's just a matter of them forging some documents in order to make that deed theft possible. So check your county records, make sure your deed's in your name, check it periodically. If your county has the ability to set up alerts, make sure you do that. Take the time to do that. Now, as we always talk about, building wealth is very difficult, and holding on to it is becoming just as hard because of all the scammers. But that's when I strongly suggest you take a look at.
Those mortgage scams are big, though. They coming more and more, man. More
Yeah.
often. I mean, taking people's mortgage place right from under them. But great ones, y'all. Like I said, if you stop getting that electricity bill, you ever had one in a while, or water bill? I mean, gas and all that. That's a good giveaway.
And especially if you own a property that you are occupying, that's the scenario where it's more likely to happen. But again, that doesn't mean it can't happen where you live. So definitely do that. In addition, to make sure you get your taxes filed, make sure you get your PIN number. Watch out for IRS scams because they're prevalent this time of year. You ain't gonna get it. You will not get an email from the IRS. Watch out for who you use to do your taxes. Watch out for firms offering quick refunds and refund loans. Those are scammers. So just be diligent when it comes to your money.
Yeah, Rodney Madison Senior said, watch out for those squatters too, those rental properties you got.
Yeah, I've heard about that. It's hard to get them out once they get in.
Yeah, certain state laws, man, it favors the squatters,
Yep.
So no, good advice though. Last week's show, ladies and gentlemen, was called Investing Principles to Live By. This week's show is money advice from the experts. Kiplinger, and by the way, full disclosure, me and Dope get a lot of our information we use from Kiplinger's, Smart Assets, Smart News, Fidelity, Vanguard, Yahoo. We get a lot of information. But this comes from Kiplinger. They actually took this. This just started off, Dope.
Yeah, and it's about getting financial advice. You got to be leery of where you get it from because right now it's everywhere. In the digital age, you can find money advice anywhere, and hopefully you're getting some advice from financial advisors and financial planning and financial services websites. We always talk about looking at YouTube, looking at TikTok. Hope you aren't getting much from that source. Or social media platforms in general, because again, you don't know where that's coming from. A lot of good newsletters, a lot of good periodicals out there, but it's everywhere. But what this poll told us is that a lot of people still get advice from family and friends, and we always tell you to be leery of that. Not that people who don't have can't give good advice, but my Uncle Marshall always would tell us, can't nobody tell me how to build a crop if they ain't never built one, or grew a crop if they never grew one. And if I'm taking advice, I'm taking advice from people who have what I want, who've accomplished something that I want to accomplish. And again, that doesn't mean you can't learn from people's mistakes, but in general, you want to find out from people, or get advice from people who've been successful, who's accomplished what it is you're trying to accomplish. And as I said, despite all that information out there on social media and financial publications and podcasts and YouTube and all that stuff, most people still turn to family and friends for money advice, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah, dude, I used to have a brother-in-law, man, that always had a scheme. I hope it didn't force him out. I didn't have many brother-in-laws. I just thought about that. Nothing personal. But I still have more than one brother-in-law, so they don't know what I'm talking about. But he always had these schemes. Stop laughing out there. And I know who's laughing, by the way. I ain't going to say no name. But anyway, No, it is so. I mean, the truth of what you're saying is so. So much information out there, man. But the challenge, of course, is figuring out whether any of the many financial recommendations that you come across are actually the very best advice that you can get from for your circumstances. Now, guidance that will not only help you manage your money wisely, but also to provide perspective. Can keep you grounded, wherever the opportunities are, obstacles or challenges in life, come your way fast. And it is good to get some good sound advice. We're not saying that, but that's why we have a diverse group of top financial experts, acclaimed investors, advisors, and money managers, economists, and even influencers today compiled from Clippinger and more, and they sharing their very best advice. Now, the essential question were put to them: of all the many recommendations or insights about money you've given or received, what are the best, most meaningful, or most impactful tips you want to pass along? Some of these names you're going to know, but they were asked, out of all the advice you give, what is the very best? So this is the best of the best. And these answers include not just practical suggestions on how to save or spend, invest, or even manage your money, but it's also insights that help put your money and how you feel about it in perspective. So we hope, you find these responses helpful, useful, surprising, and moving, and sometimes even funny.
And another qualification is that some of the people we're going to be telling you what their advice is. We don't agree with everything they say,
Right.
and you'll have to. But these are all points that we do agree with. But that's why it's so difficult to get advice, because again, you'd have to tell someone your entire situation, what your goals are, what your plans are, how you think, and that's a lot of information to for anyone to have. But some of the advice we're going to talk about now is kind of generic in nature, in that it fits most situations. So hopefully it'll make some sense to you. And the first one is my personal favorite, and it's stick to the basics. And there's no shortcut to building wealth. There's no easy button. You can't order it from Amazon and have it show up on your porch that you're going to be successful. We've talked about this a bunch. You've got to do the work. You got to go through the journey. You've got to sacrifice, and it's some basic simple points. You got to live on less you make. You got to invest consistently. You have to limit the amount of debt you take, because debt actually takes you backwards, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do, and that goes back to that saying by Lou Saban: in life, you got to choose between two difficult things. One is discipline, and the other, if you don't have discipline, is basically not accomplishing what you want. So you got to choose your heart. But the good news is that if you do those things, if you live below your means, if you stay out of debt, make good decisions, that you're going to be successful 100% of the time. It will definitely work. And this information is from Dave Ramsey, who I'd say 70% of what he says I believe in. A lot of things I think he talks about are kind of out there and are too people specific to really be useful. But sticking to the basics, I think that's a good one.
That's a great one. Dave Ramsey's pretty cool, and I agree, though. About 70% I go with what he says. The next one is from Fanus Torby. Has a podcast, Soul Money, and has a book out there, Healthy State of Panic, which I think is an interesting name of the book. But this one is interesting. This Be Your Own Advocate. Fanus says, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. See, I'm not sure who told me this or where I heard it, but this insight has been living rent-free in my head for the past 25 years. This has led me to never assume I'm just going to be handed a raise, a financial break, or even a career opportunity. You have to work for it. And me and Dope talk that all the time about wealth. You have to put the work in. He says, be strategic and be your best advocate. It won't always work, but you'll greatly increase your chances of success. And I'll add to this, Dope, because a lot of people, I remember this old guy said, he said he believes in luck. He said, but this is what he believes in luck. He said, I believe you work for your luck. And that has always stuck with me.
Yeah, for sure. And the next one is one we've mentioned before, and it gets helped when you need it. And this is coming from Tiffany Alish, who's the founder of a finance education company. And she just put it a different way that made a lot more sense to me. She talks about money being a team sport and people thinking they have to manage all the money nuances on their own just because they're an adult. But she says, the older I've gotten, the more I realize there's no way I can possibly know everything. And I think I've said that to you several times. There's just too much to know. So her point is she asked a tax person about taxes, just like if she had something wrong with her eyes, she'd go to an ophthalmologist. And I've never looked at it that way, but it does make so much sense that you need to go to an expert on some of these particular situations when it comes to financing. Taxes is one of them. Estate planning is one of them. Just getting your goals, doing your planning. If you getting a budget, understanding how you think, all those things. If you need help, get help. And then every other part of your life, when you need an expert, you go get an expert. Your money situation shouldn't be any different.
I like this next one, Dope. Even good debt can be bad. And you just talked about at the top of the hour about debt, specifically really probably about, bad debt, like credit card debt and things like that. But good debt can take you in the hole too. It's a slow killer of people's financial dreams because everybody talks about mortgages, student loans, like they're investments in your future. But any debt becomes bad debt when it's excessive or you don't have a clear strategy to pay it off. And we talk about that all the time, though, having a strategy, having a plan. And I've seen that because a lot of people are, getting bigger homes, getting to the big home, and the bigger the home, the more furniture you got to put in it. And, and yes, a mortgage is good, a mortgage is good, but if you can't handle it, if it doesn't fit within your budget, that good debt can take you down. And I've seen another one, though, about people with college. Some people, they don't have to go. Their kids go like 2 semesters, and they really undecided, don't know. Sometimes maybe you just go to a community college to just take some credit until you can make up your mind. Even though it's good to plan and that's going to help your future. But maybe you should just think about a community college before you jump in there, or just take a couple of courses, instead of jumping into a whole, 1-year program. But I like this one. This was by Lynette Calfini Cox, and she's known as the money coach and author of Bounce Back.
And Bob, to piggyback on that, that used to be the thinking, though, was to buy as much house as you can possibly get.
Right.
Because of the way house values went up. And there was a time when that was guaranteed, but obviously it's not like that anymore. House values are up right now, but there's also a bunch of markets that they went belly up because the markets didn't continue to go up and people were upside down. They owed a lot more on their mortgage than their house was worth. So that's a definitely good point. You don't want to be a slave to debt. The next one is by a certified financial planner. And this is one we talked about before, but again, he puts it in a way that makes it make more sense. And this one is let your values be your guide, align your life and money so that your money has assignments. Do the mindful work of discovering what you value most then be intentional, strategic, and systematic about where your money goes. And this gets into people who haven't had money often, just looking at the way they use money as opposed to just using money as something to buy things. Really think about what you want out of the money, what you want in life, and you can end up investing more than markets, but also in meaning. And if you're looking at what you value, what's important to you, and then when you sit down and do a budget, it's going to make more sense to you if you are doing things with your money that you really want to accomplish, as opposed to just haphazardly spending and not knowing where your money is going and not putting any thought behind your purchases.
And it's your values that actually drive you to make the decisions that you do in your life, because people do what's important to them, so it's important to have your values aligned with your priorities, no doubt about that.
It's much easier to stick to it if it's something you really believe in,
Right. And sometimes you got to check in what you believe in, because what you believe in can change tomorrow.
Yeah.
What the next thing I want to talk about, though, this is a pretty interesting one. And this is by CFP. He said, think about the broad impact. Now, really think about this, y'all. Think about the broad impact when you make money decisions based on just what we just talked about, values and things. Think of money as a tool to invest in all aspects of your life. It's not financial planning is just not about money. It's just not about portfolio investments and portfolios and diversification. No, it's about relationships, your health, even the ability to hire tutors for your kids, right? So if you planning and you're spending, you need to look at all these other things and while you're building your wealth, because these things bring financial decisions down to earth, down to the level of how they will impact your everyday personal life. Use money as a tool to create a better quality life. A lot of people just be stockpiling and thinking the more they stockpile, the more they increase their bottom line. But you need to make sure, once again, you look at the broad impact. How does it affect all those other things in your life?
Yeah, the next one I kind of poo-pooed when I first saw it, because I'm definitely a numbers person. But this one is look past the math. And a lot of times you'll make a decisions based just on the numbers. And if you always made a decision just based on the numbers, a person would never pay off their mortgage early, especially if you have a favorable interest rate, because the thinking is always, why would you take and pay off your mortgage when you can take that money and invest it at a higher rate than your mortgage interest rate?
Right.
From the math standpoint, that makes perfectly good sense. But sometimes you have to look behind the math and you got to look at just what gives you peace of mind. And that may make you sleep better at night, knowing you don't have a mortgage, knowing you don't have to worry about the market going down. So again, that's something you have to look inside, determine what's important to you. And sometimes the math doesn't matter. It just comes down to what makes you feel good. And some people feel better from being debt-free, from not having a mortgage or not having a car note, even though the math may say, don't take the money and pay that off, take that money and invest it, and you're actually arbitraging that money and doing better. Overall, your financial life would probably be better. But if you sleep better not having a mortgage, do what helps you sleep better, do what makes you comfortable. Sometimes you have to look past the math.
Yeah, and a lot of times people get caught up in the numbers. And I always start off my financial education workshops with mindset. You got to think of all those things, though. I like that one because I was shocked with you when it comes to numbers. You're the numbers guy.
That's what I usually live by. Yep.
But that made a lot of sense, though. I mean, you just can't live by numbers. The next one, though, is kind of interesting too. It's good. Make good habits automatic. Now, people give too much advice, like telling people to spend less. That relies on motivation, and somehow it just gives a negative, connotation, like you were somehow the problem. You know, what this particular advisor says, he prefers to create automatic systems so that doing the right thing with your money is the default. For example, he takes his entire paycheck. His entire paycheck doesn't go directly to his checking account. He signed up for in advance for it to be parsed, like money out to different accounts, like for retirement, for emergency fund, and for paying his bills. Then the balance goes to his checking account. And I say this one though, when he talks about when I tell people about budgeting and telling them about, spending too much. When people hear budget, normally what they hear is money on a diet. Like you said, that becomes such a negative thing. Like, people don't, and that's why some people, don't like to budget because it feel like they restricting them. But if you can get like a system, that's the key to all of this though. Whether it's a budget, whether you're investing, it's all about having a system. Because if you're out there without a plan or a system, you're out there like a ship without a rudder. You gotta have a system, and this one is talking about make it automatic, and especially with all the automation they got nowadays, you can do that.
Yeah, the next one, we kind of laughed at this one for a while, and Bob, I appreciate it.
We weren't going to use it.
I actually loved it, and this one's by Chief Financial, or the person who's in charge of Chief of Financial Empowerment at SoFi, and this one is Mary Wisely, and it says it's unconventional, but that's her best advice. You got to pick the right life partner, and that one I think is very, very true, because that's one of those decisions you have to live with either all of your life or the vast majority of your life, and you're financially tied to that person, obviously, and that person could be your biggest cheerleader, or they could be what holds you back from ever accomplishing anything. And so when you choose that person, they're going to have a big effect over the rest of your life. And if they're on the same page as you financially, then they're going to be an asset. And if they have the same goals, the same values, sometimes you can have a situation where one person is a spender and one person's a saver. And if they work together, they can work things out. But I don't think that's one that's looked at enough when people hook up, that sometimes they just are in two different worlds financially. And there's no way you can ever accomplish anything with two people who are thinking totally different. For example, if one is an extreme risk taker and the other one is extremely conservative, there are going to be some issues. And I think it's important to marry somebody that you're compatible with and all those other things, but also financially. You have to be on the same page if you plan on building wealth. I think that one is very, very important.
Number one issue for divorce, though, is finances.
No question. And it's a lot of times it's people thinking the other person is wrong because they don't agree. They don't come to any kind of common ground. And if you don't have a plan, you don't have a budget, you don't have goals, then it's very easy for two people to go in directions that the other one may not appreciate, and they could be going in two opposite directions. If there's no, like you talked about being rudderless, if there's no goal or plan involved, you got two people just going, and there is no end point. And so you that's one of those things that should definitely be, discussed and agreed upon.
Now, get this straight. We're not telling you to go out there and marry a sugar daddy or a sugar mama, okay?
No, somebody on the same page as you when it comes to finances. If your goal is to build wealth and to be a saver, to be an investor, to have a plan, have a budget, you should find someone who has those same thoughts. So you guys can be on the same page and work together to accomplish the same thing. You can get there a lot easier if you got two people pulling in the same direction, as opposed to two people not knowing where they're going.
And what I found out, back to the system, most families don't have a good system. I won't say they don't have a system, but sometimes they don't have, because I know some people like, well, you pay the gas and you pay the kids and I'll pay the mortgage. And it's just a flawed system. And we can call it system. You talked about it early. It's also about being disciplined by having a system. And one of the systems that I've seen that works the best, though, is people don't even realize this. I mean, there's no one size fit all, but just add your salary to your mate's salary and then divide it by your individual salary. And that tells you the actual proportion, what is proportional, how much you should be putting into the pot. Same thing with the reverse. You add the two salaries together, take the other spouse, and that's going to give you, and then you can have the family pot, and then you can have a personal account. Both have a personal account, because I don't go to my wife and be asking her, oh, look, well, I took the money out to go play golf. No, we got our own personal accounts and the family account. And when she go do her hairs and nails, sometimes I'm like, good God, that costs that much? I can't talk because we already have our system that works. So have a system. That's my point. Next is understand why and how you spend money. Okay. The most important factor in financial independence isn't how much you have, it's how much you spend. And we talked about intentional spending on this show. It's so important. Someone who spends $60,000 a year needs to save a heck of a lot less than someone, to support their lifestyle, than someone who spends $200,000 a year. If you don't understand how you spend your money and what's important to you, back again to the values, then you're rudderless when it's time to live on your money in retirement, which makes it even much easier to run out of money. Understanding your needs and making sure you have enough saved for these type of things, gives you an idea how much extra you have for the fun things. And if the world falls apart, it's the economy, if we end up in a recession or a pandemic, market downturn, you'll know where to cut back to make it through those times, because you understood and understand how you spend your money, because I know a lot of people, spending outside of their needs, and that's a disaster for failure. Modestine said that's the best way: household account and a personal account. Okay, she likes that. Okay, Modestine. Okay, I'll take that.
And what different things work for different people.
Correct.
Hold on. Am I still there?
Yeah, you still there.
Oh, I thought I lost everything.
No, but that's why I started off saying that, though. That was just one idea that I gave.
Yeah, and that's what you got to understand. That what works for Bob may not work for everybody else, and sometimes it's best if you have one person who's astute with money to let that person handle the money. If the other person, but both people got to be abreast of what's going on, and again, they got to be on the same page. And I think you hit on it, Bob, when you say you got to have a system.
Gotcha.
You got to have something that works. You got to have a plan. You got to have goals. Once you set those, it's pretty easy to figure out how to get there. But if you don't have plans and goals, it's going to be an issue. And it's real important when you're starting off, when you first starting off, is to have all this knowledge before you end up running yourself up in debt, before you make a lot of bad decisions. And that's why it's important to catch folks right out of college. Not so much now, because they send credit card applications to kids in college now. They give credit to kids in college. And that's just the trap that a lot of people get caught in, especially if you've never had money. It's pretty easy to get caught up into having a credit card and buying things. And that's why it's important to pass financial information to our younger folks, even though a lot of them don't like listening to old people. But this is information that they need to have before they get started. Because life is so much easier if you get started on the right foot. And by that, I mean, it is not having debt. That can be an albatross around, and it could stay there forever if it's not managed. Because we always talk about the rule of 72s and how money grows, but debt follows the same rules.
Yeah, good point.
If you're paying 18% interest rate, your amount owed doubles every 4 years. And so if you know anybody just starting off, get them to understand those basic things of automatically saving, having a budget, trying to live within their means and not going into debt. It's so easy to do that, and get them thinking about money not as just something to buy things, but something to help you accomplish what you want to in life, that helps you get to the point where you are as impressed with your bank account as you are with that Louis Vuitton bag or that fancy car or those fancy clothes. And a lot of times it's just a matter of getting people to understand what you can do with money, how fast it can grow. And it's try to catch folks before they get going in a bad direction.
And that's like the point, the other one that I had. Think about the broad impact. Don't think about it narrowly. Mo Better got on in time. Thank you for being on time for one time, Mo Better. But Mo Better said, you don't want someone, being with someone that's not good with money, having the money.
That's for sure. You got to be on the same page. When we first started out, we were both, me and my wife were both anti-debt. We didn't believe in credit card debt. But I mean, and some of it is luck too. I mean, we didn't have any. A lot of people start off with school debt. Neither one of us had any student loans, so we started off with kind of a clean slate. But we saved as much money as we could as an early age. We still joke about, she was working at the bank when we first got married, and the person in HR couldn't believe how much she wanted to save. She kept thinking she was making a mistake because we were trying to save as much of her salary as we could. And that's just getting started off on the right foot. But so if you get a chance to catch somebody when they first start working, try to get them on the right track at the beginning. It's a lot easier if you do it at the beginning, because your spending habits are going to grow into what you bring home. It's a lot harder to start saving after you've already had it in your pocket. If you can get them the initial sign up for all their benefits, get them to sign up for the savings plan, save the max that you can at the beginning. That's a lot easier to do than to try to get them to cut what they're bringing home and add to the pot. So
Garnett said, this show has truly made me a better saver. Thank you for that, Garnett.
I hope so.
Appreciate that. We preach that all the time. Though, I just got to tell you, when me and Tiffany, got married, and you can go overboard too, because I'm calling myself being, the, thrift spender, and and I told her, hey, why are you going to different places buying the water? We can save money. You just go to one place. She's, for real, Bob? For real? Like you say, you got to get, I'm thinking I'm being all smart, why you go? And she's like, for real, Bob, I buy because they had a price over here and then didn't have that price. But, once again, it's about, as they say, don't being evenly yoked, man. But she made me realize that. She's like, come on, Bob.
Hey, man, I've been counting pennies from day one, man. It's
look, you squeeze so hard.
Yeah, I probably a pain to live with, because I am extremely frugal, and you just got to be careful that you're not cheap. Being frugal is okay,
right,
but you don't want to be cheap.
Right.
You never want to buy cheap things. You never want to think cheaply. Being frugal is okay. Just being cheap usually doesn't pay off.
I learned that overseas, though. I learned buying a really good, expensive pair of pants lasts way longer than buying 3 pairs of pants that were cheap. They end up with the hems coming out, and you know what I mean. I learned the value of paying for what's good. Because, like I said,
But you know the tough part with that, Bob, because you can take that to the extreme. I'm not gonna buy that Chevrolet. I'm gonna get that Mercedes because it's a lot better built. It's
yeah, yeah,
stronger.
yeah,
Yeah, you really have to think money decisions through, and if you do it under the guise of a plan and goals, it's a lot easier because your plans and your goals may tell you 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 can't afford that Mercedes, that you need to buy that Honda Civic as opposed to that G Wagon. If you have a plan and a budget, that can make it a lot easier. And as far as you don't want to be with somebody who has different money goals than you have. I don't. Obviously, somebody like me who's so into money, that wouldn't have worked to marry somebody who was not on the same page money wise. Because that's I don't want to say that's a big part of my life. I don't want you guys thinking I only think about money. But it,
oh,
it,
it sure sounds like.
it does take up a pretty big spot in my life. But yeah, I would have had trouble with somebody who wasn't economical, smart, thrifty,
Yeah.
and really had goals and plans and really understood what the plan was. That would have been difficult for me.
Yeah, and and I'm so fortunate though to have a wife that likes good stuff, but she's not an overspender, man. And she taught me a lot, because I was a tight penny pincher. The only reason why though, because
I never saw you as a penny pincher.
yeah, but I was though, because I'll give you one example though, and don't you? And I don't even want you to comment on it.
About the soup,
Steak and eggs.
ham and eggs.
Don't you bring that story
We
up.
ain't gonna bring that up.
Thank you. But that's why I didn't have much.
But you were broke. That's different when you
Right.
broke. But when you got money, I never saw you as spending wildly.
Right. Yeah. No, right. That's why I didn't, because I was, used to being without. So I always had that loss aversion, was afraid to lose money than to really try to make money. But got better over time, and thank God through information. So, ladies and gentlemen, Garnett, thank you for your comments. Oh, Garnett said good night. She's going to gather the grandkids. Go on with your bad self, girl. Now you're going to be getting generational wealth for them kids together now, because we talk about that all the time. Look, thank everybody for being on as always. Got a good roll call. I don't know where Nolia is. Nolia when Nolia is out. Gloria and Linda are on, my sisters. And when Nola is out, she's probably asleep. So I ain't going to hold that against her. Joanne Skinner, always a winner. Rodney L. Madison Sr. TheNoteExperience.com. Rodney's got some good properties out there that's coming up that you can take a part of. If you want to find out more, go out on TheNoteExperience.gov. Another alternative investment that is a very sound investment, and it's another way to build wealth. Now, Nisi, Dodie, God bless you, dealing with the tightest pincher in the world, in the land. Modestine. What's up, Modestine? Lexington, South Carolina's finest. And the Joanne, I said Joanne. Mo Better. And what do you call it? The Toastmasters International finest, Kitty Cheney. Kitty finally retired, girl. And I know that FDIC money, you're going to be loving spending that in your retirement, because I know you were a finance person all your life, so I know you did good. So thank you. I think I covered everybody. I sure did. Everybody, lottie-dottie, dope. The quote of the week is, health is like time. You only realize its value after you wasted much of it.
That's pretty good. I like that one.
Anytime I can get approval from you, I'm so it takes a lot to get that out of you. Ladies and gentlemen, for all the people in the area or not in the area who's close to the area, the Bowie Wine and Taste Festival that we do every year at the Bowie Town Center is April the 18th and 19th from 12 o'clock to 6 p.m. We'll have 6 bands, and the last band on Sunday is going to be our band. I Am Your Daddy Band, a Kid Creole. Yes, the big boxer is cranking out the vocals and the percussion. And we got a 12-piece band jamming. So April the 18th and 19th is the Bowie Wine Taste. We got block off the whole streets in the town center and have vendors of all kinds of merchandise. And then we have a wine tasting and food. So please come out. Appreciate it. Then after that, every Saturday until October, we do 6 to 8 p.m. We have a local R&B band. And by the way, I am the MC. And I hope y'all come out. So thank you so much. Think I covered everything dope. Look forward to seeing y'all next week. Same back channel. And we're going to have another great topic. So put in the comment box any topics you'd like for us to cover. If there's some questions you have, put it in the comment box and we will address it. If not on this show, we'll address it another time. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.